What's happening, fam? L.A.R. movement still moving. Book entitled Lessons from a Non-Custodial Father at Amazon Kindle Create Space. Link will be in the description box below as usual. Title: What if the Confederates won? Or the Confederacy won? Saw on my Facebook, guy was talking about the show that they're making on HBO about, the Confederacy winning and what would happen. Or how would things be today? Good question. Good topic, in my opinion. People are offended, but you can, if you don't know what's going on, you can take this plenty of different ways. So let's try. Well, if they won, you gotta ask, would there be an industrial revolution? Because for the most part, they lost because they weren't as industrious. They weren't able to. The the South was so dependent on slave labor that they didn't have ingenuity because they were getting money hand over fist for free labor. So how long would the country actually last with a mentality of being just slaves gonna get me paid? Because eventually other places in the world will catch up, because honestly it'd be easy to freeze this country out and crush it. Now, another thing is, would slave labor is still part of what this country is still built on, to be perfectly honest, even to this day. Or the amalgamation or the different types of slave labor. What I mean by that is this: slave labor stopped. You had jail labor using race. Then you had child labor. Then you had immigration. Immigrants coming working for cheap, just on the hopes of a dream, right? Then you had expats. That's where we at to a degree right now, or in minimum wage earnings at the same time. And at the same time, you got outsourcing. All basically, if you can't get free labor from slavery, you get super cheap labor by using other people. Now, the question would be, if the Confederates won, would people actually come here? I mean, they would come here to think they could own slaves. But if that market dries up, why would they come? What future would they actually build for themselves? I mean, would you have immigrants coming? I doubt it. But just a hypothetical. As far as events that happen and how things operate, if the Confederates won, they would probably be on Germany's side during the Holocaust. Just, I mean, pretty much on the same page. So how would this country be seen in the worldview now? Because a lot of times when people still walk around with the rebel flag, right? They're proud of their Southern heritage, which is weird. But let's just put it to a what if thought. Would people who, if the Confederates won, would they allow people to walk around with Union flags, or the United States flag? Would that be a treasonous act? Would they be able to erect George Washington statues in a Robert E. Lee state? You get what I'm saying? Would that work? Would that actually happen in this country? You know, that would be interesting, because if they would have won, I kind of doubt that. I think that would be looked at as treasonous, but whatever. Also, if the Confederates won, how long would the slavery we talk about last? at that particular point. I mean, because the Civil War had a lot of death, a lot of people killed, and if the Confederates won and they took that a large amount of casualties, and their winning created the slaves, the slaves in the South to understand, because there were slaves all over the United States, but that's a different story. Wouldn't that be? Would it be an all-out war from that point on? Because your your military won, but it's kind of depleted, and you probably outnumbered. You're not outgunned, but you're outnumbered by slaves. So how long do you think it would last? Not to mention um, Mexico's war, not to mention the Native Americans who were quote unquote still left over. If the Confederates won, do you think it'd have been an insurrection and they probably would have lost? Because in history, um, there's been numerous battles where small farmers and slaves beat the brakes off of militaries. Haiti, uh, John Horse, and with the Mexicans and the Spaniards, um, the slave revolts, because they always had to bring in reinforcements to kill everybody. Um, Jasper Younger, which there was those were the actual slaves who I want to say who beat the French to kick off what we call Cinco de Mayo and Spanish independence. You know, that's what kicked it off. Black slaves beating the brakes off of French farmers in the town. Forget the doggone town name right now, but that's how it started. But there's numerous other stories like that. It's not uncommon. So would they actually last? How long would the Confederacy last if they would have won? Um, if they would have won, would history look at them different? Because all things being equal, and they would have won, and everything would have been back to normal. I mean, their evil and brutality would have probably continued and emboldened them to be even more evil and brutal. So people try to say, would the Confederates win and now their descendants be ashamed of the things that they did to win and the things that they would do after they won? I doubt it, but just a question. Um, because the mentality of Confederacy lives on today, if it had won. You know, I think it's just um, it's woven into the United States flag. To be perfectly honest, you got a Confederate, Democrat, Republican. It's just Union and Confederates working together with two different ideologies. Just my opinion, but let's keep going. Um, there would there be this is the land of the free, home of the brave? I doubt it. I absolutely doubt it. Would this be a beacon of light and hope for other people coming from other places? I don't think so. Um, would this country be the most powerful military country if the Confederates had won? That that would be interesting. You know, would the Japanese have bombed Pearl Harbor? Like who would have attacked the United States after this? Um, and the irony of it is, you know, because a lot of black inventions and patents and ingenuity would have been had been stolen after that. Like, would the Union assassinate a Confederate president? Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, what type of things would have actually happened, and how would they have played out in this society? Like, would it be any different racially than it is today? I doubt it. I mean, I think that's why I say the Confederate flag is kind of woven into the United States flag, because it would have still been set up in a way that um, it's beneficial to whites and not beneficial to anybody who's non-white. And so it may have been, I think it would just been more overtly blatant, but it would pretty much have been the same. Um, or if they would have won, when the run of slavery could have been over, would they have just sent everybody back to Africa and tried to run this on their own? You never know. So it's just my thoughts on this. I'm out.